How interesting to be here in Anglesey, last bastion of the original inhabitants of these islands, an important cultural and a center of the wisdom of the people that lived in these islands in ways that we would now call indigenous ways. And the premise of me speaking to you today is there's something that we can learn about our future from the wisdom that's embedded in that past. And I hope that what I can share with you will help you in your individual journey and help us in the work that we have collectively to find the future for the human species. If we were able to hear from those ancestors who once roamed this island, if we were able to hear from them right now, I have a hunch that they would be telling us not only are we citizens of the world, but they would be reminding us we're also seeds of the stars, and we're also children of the earth. They might remind us about the original gifts that were given to the humans when first we walked on the earth. The gifts to be able to love, to see beauty, to tell truth, to heal, to collaborate, maybe to manifest our dreams. If we were able to speak to our ancestors, we might tell them we've learned a thing or two since they walked on this land. We might tell them that now we can map and make tools, that we've learned to dissect and recombine things in extraordinary ways, that now we can organize and rationalize in new ways. And when we look at the sum total of those original gifts and our newfound skills, we see that we as humans have become people capable of shaping our own destiny. We've become co-creators in the process of evolution. So, ladies and gentlemen, the story that we live in now is the story of creating the future. We may be amongst the heroes of the story of how the future is created. And so it's beholden of us to think about what that future will be. And I often refer to it as a future worth choosing. What's the future worth choosing for you? It's interesting. I think the answer to that doesn't necessarily lie in your head. It probably lies in your heart. And I suspect each of us carry somewhere in our heart, maybe veiled by many things, but somewhere in our heart we carry the same longings. A longing for justice, a longing for peace, and the deep desire that our children can grow up and walk in this world in ways that are safe and secure. I've traveled around the world and I find that those same motivations lie inside the heart of people all around this world. And we're going to create a future, but we have to do so knowing that a different dream has settled over the people of the earth, perhaps since our ancestors were here on Anglesey in their pomp. A dream which has separated us from the land, it's separated us from each other. A dream which has us play small in games of competition and consumption. A dream which has us sacrifice our unity for the illusion of our individuality. And so the future we have to create must lift that dream and enable us to find a way, a sustainable and thriving and just way of living on the planet. I think the clues to that lie in the rainforest, and I want to take you there now. If you'd been with me actually when I was first there 10 years ago, I'd have made a pitiful sight. I was huddled, lying on the floor as close to the cooking fire as I could get without catching fire, wearing every scrap of clothing I could find, teeth chattering, cold to the bone, shivering uncontrollably. I had never been colder than that moment. I sat under the watchful gaze of a couple of the local mamas. They knew, I didn't necessarily know in that moment, that the effects of the shamanic cleansing that I'd just had was working on me in that moment to lift off me the toxic energy that those people know accumulates around us when we step away from the land. When we spend too much time around machines, when we spend time in this frenzied, fast-paced world. The fever passed, the cleansing worked. I woke up in a new world. I woke up inside a new worldview and began to explore it. I want to tell you something about that, but I want to honor the people of the rainforest by showing you some of the people that I've met there, these actually are Shuar people from the community of Uvienza, which is in the south central region of Ecuador, the Amazon basin inside the territory we call Ecuador. Beautiful faces, beautiful people. And if you and I were to follow these people, if we were trying to walk behind them as they adroitly find their way down a forest path, we'd see them interacting with the natural world in an amazing way. They know that all of life is sacred, which means for them worthy of reverence. And they know how all of life is interconnected, that that bug and that ivy and that bird in the tree are all somehow essential to the overall health of the forest. And they hold themselves to be custodians of life, custodians of the life of the forest. It's interesting because when you speak with people from other indigenous nations, and I'm thinking of North America now, they will also talk about themselves as custodians of life. And one of the stories that I was told was that we willingly accepted that role when we were gifted the ability to make fire, which brings with it enormous benefit and great risk. And so to balance out the power that we'd been given making fire, we took on willingly the role as custodians of all life. So we'd see in the rainforest how connected people are to all of life. And if we ask that question of our own culture here in this country right now, well, I read a recent survey that said amongst 16 to 25-year-olds in the UK, over half of them didn't know that butter came from milk, came from cows. If we were in the rainforest, I'd also want you to get up with me before dawn and sit with one of these families as they go through the ritual that they go through every single morning of arising at 4, drinking tea together, sharing their dreams, and interpreting their dreams in such a way that they can decide how to spend their day or how to approach important decisions in their lives. You see, these people know that they are guided by an intelligence outside of themselves. They know that there's a wisdom that they can tap into, in this case through their dreams, sometimes through their medicines, the plants of the forest, which will guide them in their decision making and in their lives. Contrast that with our own situation, and I guess if you polled a group in this country and said, what's the source of wisdom that you tap into that's outside of yourself, most of us would probably say the internet. The third experience we might have if we're in the forest together now is to sit with the local people as they're consulting to make important decisions that affect everybody in a particular village, a particular community, they would say. You'd hear them listening deeply to each other for hours on end sometimes. You'd hear every single person speaking if they wish to speak, so that the decisions they make honor all wisdom and reflect or the decisions can be supported by everybody in the community. They value the unity and health of their communities so much because they know they can't live on their own. And so they go to, we would say, extraordinary lengths to ensure that community cohesion is provided for everything that they do. Communities become a little bit of an unpopular topic. It's a concept that's faded from view somewhat in this country, where we've tended to revere the cult of individuality. And so there's a point of difference there that I want to highlight as well. So those three elements, we've got that we're custodians of life, that we're guided from some source of wisdom outside of ourselves, and that we are the health and strength of our communities, are held in place by the culture that each of these peoples, the Shuar people we saw, but the Achua people, the Zapara people who all live in that region, their culture binds together that wisdom. And when I was there in January, just a couple of months ago, I found it came to me in a poem, the importance of their culture. And they might say, it's with this stripe of paint upon my face, is with this bowl fashioned from the red earth filled with the chicha that she provides. It's with my songs of hunting and planting that I am the forest. I am 500 generations of wisdom. I am Shwar, I am Achwar, I am Zapara. That is the thread of my rich culture. Once threatened, so is my dignity. Once lost, so is my wisdom. Once broken, you see, friends, when the culture breaks in a society like that, they're no longer a proud independent nation living as protectors of the forest. They actually become a group of very poor people earning less than $1 a day with no adequate sanitation, living in the woods a long way from work. Their culture enshrines this wisdom, which in turn allows them to live sustainably generation after generation after generation in a place that is so incredibly inhospitable we wouldn't survive there. Can we use that wisdom in our own world? Well, let's look. What if we were to think of ourselves as custodians of all of life? How would that change the way that you live, the way that you walk in the world? Individually, we might choose to live more lightly on the planet. I guess that we would. We might look at what our necessary consumption is and balance that with what's unnecessary. If we were to look collectively as society as how we could be custodians of all life, my guess is we might find ourselves coming back to a rule indigenous people have used for centuries, which is to always consider the health of the seventh generation from now in the decisions that we make. If we were to honor that there's a wisdom outside of ourselves, individually we might already be doing that in our prayers or meditations, through our dreams, in our conversations with what we might call Source or God. But collectively, if we knew there was an intelligence outside the intelligence of the human being, I think as a species, we'd walk with more humility on the earth. And if we believed in the health of community, well, maybe each of us would spend more time giving to and receiving from that invisible web that we weave with all of those deeds we do that support each other and ensure the well-being of all of us. I think if we take those strands of wisdom from the rainforest, they'll not only enhance our own lives and help us live with more fulfillment individually, but they provide clues for how we collectively can find that future worth choosing, which we're searching for now. Before we leave the forest, it wouldn't be fair for us to go without me telling you something about the dangers and difficulties that the people there are facing. The principal difficulty for the people in the Ecuadorian rainforest comes from the extractive industries. And it's our addiction to fossil fuels and our endless desire for new cell phones and new gizmos that has driven the hunt for oil and minerals to the furthest reaches of the earth now. And if we were to talk about the Zapara people, I could tell you about those people, now only 600 in number. A people on the verge of extinction. There are only 4 or 5 of them that still speak the language of Zapara. They're living in a part of primary rainforest, untouched rainforest, that has just been signed over for oil exploration by the Ecuadorian government against the wishes of the local people, without the proper consultation to see if the local people wish to comply with that. The Zapara will, of course, resist. They will, of course, stand strong, protest in every way that they can. But such is the heart and integrity of these people that they'll continue to make partnership with us as well. And they'll invite you, through me, they're inviting you to visit them. They want to offer what they know of the healing capacity of the forest, the plants and medicines of the forest. They want to offer that to us so that we can benefit from this. Maybe the parting gift of a departing nation is still being offered. The Zapara, the Shwa, the Achwa, I've visited with each of them. Each of them want to invite you to know them more. Maybe to visit them, certainly to support them. My wife and I have been inspired to create a network called Friends of the Forest, in which we can build relationships between people who live in the modern world and people who live in the forest. active live relationships. Maybe we'll be blessed to meet each other in person, but otherwise we'll build relationships virtually. And these are relationships in which we can each learn something from the other. We can certainly learn about what it is that the people of the rainforest know that can help us, but we can help prepare them for the inevitable encounters they're having with the modern world. So there's an invitation to each of you to get to know, to visit, to support these people. I couldn't finish without telling you that I've also sat in front of these people who will tell us that they're doing everything they can in their power to resist this destruction, but that they are also willing to die to protect their forest home. And it's humbling for us to see what lives so strongly in other people. We are not being asked to give our lives, but we are perhaps being invited to give our time, to use our lives, to stand up for life, to stand up and protect where we can these sources of wisdom that can inspire us and the future that we want to create. So I invite each of you to stand with the people of the forest. I invite each of you to stand for the forest, to stand for life. I invite each of you to stand for a future worth choosing. And I know and I believe that together we can create a future worth choosing. Thank you.